Okay. Name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. So I'll read you today's Synaxar that we just talked about. It's going to be about St. Paul. In this year, 341 AD, the great saint Ava Paul, and in Coptic they call him Pavli, so you guys may have seen the name Pavli. In Arabic they say Mbabola. The first hermit departed. Okay, now there's a slight distinction here between a hermit and a monk. Okay, the only thing that's different in a hermit is completely alone and isolated. A monk usually lives in a community with others. He was born in the city of Thebes, which is in Upper Egypt, and had a brother whose name was Peter. When their father departed, they divided the inheritance between them, and Peter took the greater share, for Paul was still younger in age. So his older brother screwed him over, right? Basically took more of the inheritance, his dad's inheritance, and stole it from his younger brother. What's nice here is, take a mic. What's nice here is when we see that just some things never change, right? This same story happens every week, right? If you ask Abuna how many people have come to you in the last 6 months and said, we're fighting over inheritance, my sister wants this and I want that, happens all the time, okay? So it's an interesting conflict, right? Because it's very relevant. It's a lot of money, and it hurts, right? Because it's your dad. Your dad just passed away, so you're still dealing with the emotional trauma of your dad dying. And now someone who's in your family, someone who you trust, love, grew up with, rode bikes with, not that they had bikes back then, but if they did, rode camels with, I don't know. Someone you've grown up with, shared experiences with, is now trying to steal from you, right? And using the excuse, well, you're younger. And he gets better because he said, when they did not agree with each other, oh, shoot. Does anyone know what the gate code is? Zero. Never mind. Okay. Yeah, he just said never mind. Okay. And in a different reading of the Synaxar, it says, and he took the money and said, I'll give it to you when you're older, because you're younger now. So this really hurts, okay? And what's nice about this story, and this isn't very common in Coptic hagiography, which is the lives of the saints, is that it shows you difficulty, right? And sometimes we imagine the saints as living this really cool life, right? This, they're with God and life is easy and things are good. They don't have the same problems. They don't have crappy parents like I do. They didn't have the same sucky abuna I had. They don't have the blah, blah, blah that I did, right? They don't have these circumstances that I have, right? The saints just grew up to these righteous parents, and everything was just, peachy after that. And what's nice about the story is that you see that he's born in turmoil, right? And this is real stress, right? We're talking about St. Paul. That's his icon there. Today's his feast day. And how his brother tried to steal inheritance from him, his older brother. And so he's born out of turmoil, right? And at this point, he's kind of a Christian, but not really, right? So what does he do? When they did not agree with each other, so he and his brother start fighting over the money, they went to the governor to judge between them, right? So they went to the judge and said, look, we're going to take this to court. So he basically sued his brother for the money, right? Again, this isn't like, well, let's just do what's right and let's let God decide and let's just do the right thing and I'm a righteous. No, that's my money and I deserve it and I'm going to sue you for it. They went to the governor to judge between them, and on their way to the governor, they saw a funeral procession. And he was told that the deceased was one of the wealthy people of the city. And in the version we read this morning, it said, and all his money of this deceased person had been in contention between the deceased person's kids. And so what the deceased person was being buried in was the only thing he owned, like his one piece of clothing. Everything else had been taken from him. So imagine the scene. You're going to fight. You're going to court. You're ready to fight for money with your brother over your dad's inheritance, right? Very real Judge Judy kind of stuff. And you see a procession. Some people watch Judge Judy. Okay. Anyone watch Judge Judy? Like, you've seen commercials. Something. Thank you. It's one of the best shows. And she's getting feistier, على فكرة. With her age, she's losing it a little bit. She says things you really shouldn't say on TV. But that's not important. What is he sees this casket. And he sees the funeral. And this is, by the way, one of the most beautiful things about life is death. In fact, one of the saints says that death is one of the graces that God gives us. It's a grace. And when you think about life and how short it is, and you realize you don't have much. In fact, the gospel today that I was going to read was struggle for the food that doesn't perish, not the food that perishes. Not temporal things, but permanent things. And when I look at the world and I see how much greed is in the world, how much selfishness. I mean, have people killed other people for money? Yeah, like all the time. People kill each other for land. People kill each other for jewelry, for fur coats, for Air Jordans. In fact, during COVID, people almost killed each other for toilet paper. It's ridiculous. People do that. So imagine I really want a diamond ring, and that woman over there has it. I'll kill her and take the ring. Let's just think this through. How long are you going to have that ring? So you killed another person for something you're not going to have that long. Because guess what? You're going to die soon anyway. You can't take it with you, right? There's no shroud, that you get buried in with pockets, right? What did Job say? Naked I came out of my mother's womb, naked I shall return, right? I am dust, and to dust we all shall return. So imagine how much greed is in the world, and life is temporary. So you see this guy, he's 50, 51, my age, and he's scrambling to get money, and he's screwing over his employees, and he's trying to take as much money as he can, and he's, clipping here, and he's snipping there, and he's doing all these things to extract as much money as he can. How much longer am I going to be alive? And how much longer can I even enjoy it? I got another good 10 years in me, right? Before I'm on a cane, I'm peeing myself. It's not pleasant. And you're 50, and here you are, just stealing and hurting other people to take money. And you're going to die soon. Just statistically. It's an amazing thing. You watch it, and you guys are in a better position to see it, right? You can see your parents. You can see other people just like a 70-year-old man, just hungry for money and greedy and trying to hurt others and trying to steal from others and trying to take over companies and trying to do all these illegal things. I mean, all the drugs that we have, this Oxycontin and this family that sold drugs that killed hundreds of thousands of people through addiction, and they knew it addicted and killed people, but they did it because they could make more money. It's shocking. People do. And they're going to die. Imagine if we lived 200 years. Imagine how much greedier people would be. I'm a 50-year-old and I got 10 good years left in me and I'm still greedy. Imagine if I had 100 years left in me. Right? Seriously. Imagine how much greedier and how much worse the world will be. So you have wars and you have people fighting over land and you have Russia about to invade Ukraine because they want this, and thousands of people are going to be killed. Sons, fathers are going to be killed over land. And in the end, Putin dies in a few years. And he probably knows that. So, death is a grace, and it's an opportunity, right? When we put a casket in here in front of the church at a funeral, you should always come. Because one of the reasons a church has a funeral, can we stop laughing in the back? One of the reasons we have a funeral, I know it's you, Peter. And it actually wasn't, and I know it wasn't, right? One of the reasons we have a funeral is because the church wants to remind everyone in the church, everyone who's there, that one day you're going to be in the casket. And death has that kind of effect. And so the church doesn't hide death. The church celebrates it and says, let's put him right here in the front. In fact, sometimes we'll even open the casket. Look at him. Look at her. We all end up there. Right? And that has to give us perspective. And in fact, that's exactly what happened here. So St. Paul is walking with his brother. They're going to court. They're going to fight each other over this money. And they see this procession, this funeral. And then St. Paul, he just turns on a dime. It hits him. This is stupid. So he says, St. Paul sighed and said, what do I have to do then with all the money of this vain world, which I shall leave naked? Right? And obviously he's referring to this verse from Job. Naked I came out of my mother's womb, naked I shall return, when Job lost everything. He said to his brother, let us return. I'm not asking you for anything. Let's not go to the courthouse. I'm not going to sue you. I don't want any of the money. On the way back, St. Paul left his brother and went on his way outside of the city. And I want to point out something else here. It was a moment. And many times in our lives, the spiritual life isn't about their moments. And you have to capitalize on the moments. Like that moment was salient and it hit him. And he realized this is all stupid. You know, C.S. Lewis writes this book about screw tape letters. And he tells a story. It's a story. It's a book. Have anyone read this book, C.S. Lewis's Screw Tape Letters? It's a book about demons. And basically, it's a play on what the demons say. And he was talking about this one person. They call them clients, which are us. And this one person had started thinking all of these big thoughts and thinking about what's the point of my life and what's the point of this earth and what's the point of my existence and why am I here? And he's asking the really big questions. And so the one devil says to the other devil, what'd you do? He says, well, I reminded him it's lunchtime and that you shouldn't think about such big things on an empty stomach. Go get a good sandwich and then we'll think about these big lofty things. And he said, and that worked? He goes, yeah, it worked like a charm. By the end of lunch, he was feeling kind of bloated and he totally forgot about all the deep questions. And that moment is interesting, right? Because when we get these moments, whether or not they be at a talk or a retreat or in a conversation, you have to capitalize on the moments. They're sparks and they're God's grace. And the reason he's a hero and the reason we put his picture up and the reason we read his story every year is he's one of these people that didn't waste the moment. And that makes him amazing because he turned his life on a dime. I mean, imagine you're pissed off about your inheritance. You're pissed off with your brother. You're pissed off you don't have your money. And then you see the dead guy and you go, what am I doing? This is all stupid. Turn to your brother. I don't want anything. I'm just going to leave. And he did. And that's what makes these guys amazing. So he said he went outside of the city. Paul found a grave where he stayed for 3 days, praying to God to guide him as to what to do. So it's interesting. The dead man in the funeral initiated it, but he wanted to follow up. He went to a grave. And the grave is always, one of these very unique places. You all know this story about from Saint Macarius. It's a very famous story, but Someone asked St. Macarius, what should I do to be like, a perfect person? And so St. Macarius said, I want you to go to a graveyard, tonight at midnight, and I want you to praise these people who are dead, say great things about them. And I want you to tell me what they say back. So he went in the middle of the night. It's kind of spooky, of course. And he starts saying, you guys are amazing, and you're saints, and you're brilliant, and you're the best people. And he praised them for a minute or two. And then he stopped, and he listened for their response. What was the response? Crickets. Nothing. So next day he goes back to St. Macarius, and St. Macarius says, what did they say? And he said, they didn't say anything. They were quiet. And he goes, okay, good. Now tonight, I want you to go and I want you to curse them really badly. Say all the bad words that you know. Everything from rap music. Just say rap lyrics to them, pretty much. And I was listening to rap yesterday. Oh my God. Like, this guy said the N-word 85 times in like 94 words. I don't even know you could use it as a verb, adjective, and noun. Like, it was amazing. So that's not important. What is what was I saying? So he goes to the grave in the middle of the night, and he starts cussing him out. Drops all the N-words, rap music, says all the things. And then he listens, and what does he hear after he cusses them out? Crickets. Goes back to St. Macarius, and he says, what'd you hear? Nothing. He goes, perfect. You need to be like these dead people. When people praise you, you shouldn't react, and you shouldn't be excited, and you shouldn't be seeking it. And when people curse you, which they will do, you shouldn't react, and you shouldn't get excited. Right? So the graveyard has like a special place, especially for Christians, right? Because you all know that like Christianity started like with Jesus, right? 33 AD, when he was crucified. And then the church started getting persecuted by Nero, right? Nero of Rome. Does anyone know what year Nero started persecuting the Christians? History. Fools. 64 AD. All right, so 64 AD, Nero started persecuting, killing Christians. He burned down Rome and blamed it on the Christians and started killing Christians. So what did the Christians do, right? You can't have a church, right? Because if you go to the church, the soldiers come in and they kill everybody. So that doesn't last. So where did they go? Where did Christians pray? Yeah, the catacombs, right? Catacombs where you bury people, right? They're underground. They're still there in Rome, by the way. If you want to go visit them, visit the catacombs of Rome. It's very famous. When you go to Rome, you go down underneath the ground, and you go where they buried people, and they have like, you'll see sometimes paintings on the walls of like different very, very early Christian art, stuff like that. Anyway, so that's where they would pray. That's where they would gather. That's where they would hear sermons. That's where they would have the Eucharist, in these catacombs. So death is one of these things that ignites us, right? And the reason it ignites us, and the reason we react to it, is because it actually isn't very natural. Because you think death is a natural part of life, right? Everything dies. Plants die, people die, animals die, everything dies, right? But yet when people die, how do we react? Not well, right? Nobody likes it, right? When, God forbid, one of our parents goes, it won't be nice. Our grandparents go, it's not nice. A friend goes, no one's like, oh, well, that's natural. That's what happens. No. You react, you're shocked. Especially even if it's Teta and she's 98, you're shocked. Why? Because death isn't really a part of the plan. It was introduced, right? What do we say in the liturgy? Death, which entered the world through the envy of the devil, right? Death entered the world. It's an introduction into the world that shouldn't really be there. And so for us, death is one of these shocking things, right? That creates life, right? We say Jesus conquered death by death. So anyway, St. Paul goes to the catacombs where he can think, and he prays. And he stayed for 3 days praying to God, asking for God to reveal to him what would please him. His brothers searched for him, and when he did not find him, he was exceedingly sorry for what he had done. Great, insightful point, everybody. When your friend, your brother, your parent, your kid, your whatever, does something to you, it is so easy to return evil for evil. That's the instinct. That doesn't work. If you really want someone's repentance, if you really want someone to feel what they did, return good for evil. And what led his brother to repentance is the fact that he said, I don't want any money. What if he had taken his brother to court and won? How would the brother feel? Pissed. For how long? Ever. Right? He would have held it against his brother forever. You're younger. I have a family. You don't. And yet you took more money from me. And for the rest of his life, he would have blamed his brother for taking the money. He wouldn't have gotten repentance, even if his brother was right. And sometimes we do this, right? We love to shame others. We love to attack others and say, look, a real Christian does this. And you didn't do that. You didn't step up. You're not a good friend. You're not a whatever. And that just doesn't work. And as you get older, you're going to find that you're going to do that with your spouse, right? Your spouse is going to mess up because that's what spouses do. And what you're going to do is you're going to attack them. And you're going to tell them why they're wrong. And you're going to tell them why they're bad. And you're going to tell them why they're stupid. And you're going to tell them why they shouldn't have done what they did. But that isn't the right reaction, right? The right reaction is a calm reaction. It's a peaceful reaction. It's a loving reaction. And that reaction achieves far, far more than the attack. So I want you all to try it. One of your, someone's messing up, hit them on the head and tell them how stupid they are. And see how that goes for you. Let me tell you what's wrong with you. It doesn't work. And then treat someone with love and respect, despite the fact that they don't deserve it. And see how that goes. And just like this guy, Peter, came begging and looking for his brother so he can apologize, that's the reaction you get to love. For he was exceedingly sorry for what he had done. The Lord sent to St. Paul an angel who walked with him to the eastern inner wilderness. He dwelt there for 70 years. This is shocking. During which he did not see the face of a man. So this guy walks into the inner desert, which some of you may know in Egypt is actually near Upper Egypt. It's where his monastery is now. It's close to the Red Sea. Has anyone ever been there? There's nothing there. Like nothing. And he was there for 70 years and never saw the face of a man. What do you think of that? Welcome back, Peter. What do you think of that? Is it extreme? Think he was bored? Probably a little. In the life of St. Anthony, it says at one point he was bored. St. Anthony got bored. And so what did an angel do when St. Anthony got bored? Who knows the story? He taught him how to weave baskets and said, you should do this so you don't get bored. Do you think he was frustrated? Absolutely. Do you think he had the thought, what am I doing here? This is crazy. Do you think he had that thought? Absolutely. Do you think he thought, what if there is no God? What if I'm just wasting my time? Do you think he had that thought? Absolutely. Think he was scared? What if an animal attacks me? He's hearing coyotes howl in the middle of the night. Think you're scared to death sometimes? You know how dark it gets in the desert? No flashlights back then, right? So how dark was it? How long were those nights when you hear something rustling in the bushes and you keep one eye open all night long? What does the next day look like? You're tired. So was he scared? Yeah. Frustrated? Yeah. Hungry? Yeah. Lonely? Yeah. Why? He's just a man. He's a guy like the rest of us. He's a person like the rest of us. So he went through all of these emotions. Don't fool yourself. It wasn't bliss. It was hard. There was tons of hard moments. Never to be recorded. I don't know what happened over a 70-year period, but I can only imagine how many stories this guy could tell of things that happened and how they happened and what he saw over a 70-year period. How do you not lose your mind? Yeah.
You said he was 50?
No. He wasn't. I was 50. I'm 50.
No.
I'm 51.
I said he was 50 when he was arguing with his brother.
No. I don't. It doesn't say how old he was. I don't think I said so. It was in 341 AD. Nero burned down in 64 AD. Okay. And so one of the beautiful things, and he had on a tunic made of palm tree fiber. The Lord sent him a raven every day with half a loaf of bread. And that's kind of the picture on the icon here. You see the raven? And this is a very interesting characteristic. The raven came to him every day for 70 years and brought him half a loaf of bread. Anyone here ever, sit on the pier at Ruby's and you have French fries and the seagulls are there? Any seagull ever bring you food? Any bird ever, some crow come up to you and say, here's some food? It's completely against the nature of a bird to bring food. Birds take food, especially bread. So obviously that bird went to someone very stupid who would put out half a loaf every single day, steal that half a loaf, and bring it to St. Paul. I heard a story this morning about a priest who was very loving with animals. And he just, this is like in, 20 years ago. And like he had just cats and dogs and animals in his house all the time. Russian priest. And he said he went to go visit a family that had a German shepherd that was a killer German shepherd, a very aggressive German shepherd. Okay? And German shepherds are big dogs. And this was a big German shepherd, and he attacked people all the time. They couldn't tame this dog, blah, blah, blah. So the priest decided to show up to this family as a surprise visit. So he opened the gate, and this German shepherd came at him full speed as he walked in through the gate. And the German shepherd jumped up on him, and everyone thought, this guy's a goner. Right? Anyone who's lived in that neighborhood knows this German shepherd is just a vicious, crazy dog. And when they walked up, they saw that the German shepherd had his paws on the priest's shoulders. He was that big, and he was licking his face and wagging his tail. And the priest said, he knows I love animals. He can sense it. So there's lots of stories like this. When you talk about holy people, you see this very common thread. It doesn't matter if you're Russian or Egyptian or whatever. They all have the same story. The animals react to the humans, not in the way an animal normally reacts to a human. Like Mbarwiz, this Mbatiji right there, there's a camel that he's holding, right? Anyone here ever been around a camel? It's a vicious, disgusting animal, right? Its teeth are horrible. It makes horrible sounds with its face. Its teeth are ugly and it's big. And if it bites you, it really hurts and it attacks its owner, right? There's even an expression, hawishigemen, right? Which means, camels, like they take a beating from their owner for a really long time and they don't say anything. And then all of a sudden they just turn on their owner and kill them, right? This is camels are not nice, right? But when he lived with that camel, he would cuddle with the camel, and to the point where people would see this happen all the time. When he would sleep with the camel and the blanket would fall off, Amarwiz, the camel would reach over gently with its mouth, pick up the blanket and pull it up over him and cover him. Not natural. And so what this shows us is something very actually theological. Because in the book of Genesis, in the beginning, it says, when God created man, he created them in harmony with the animals. Right? That Adam even named the animals. And there was a unity. And so the way God intended for us to be is there is for us to be a harmony with three things. First, with God. Second, with ourselves. And third, with nature. And so when we reach that state of Adam before the fall, when we reach that state of harmony with God, we have harmony with those three things. And it's like an equilibrium. And you find that people are in harmony with God, harmony with themselves, and harmony with nature. You know, even stories like Elijah when he says, I don't want it to rain. And it didn't rain for 3.5 years. Or even when Jesus gets into the boat and the sea is very stormy and he says, and he just calms the sea. Nature obeyed him. Right? These aren't just miracle stories. This is theology, right? So this saint reached the state of Adam before the fall that the animals reacted to him in a way that wasn't natural. So this bird, instead of taking his food every day, which is how I expect the story to end, this bird brought him food every day. How much? Half a loaf. When the Lord willed to reveal his holiness and godliness, he sent an angel to St. Anthony. So St. Anthony is the other guy in this icon. The Great, and told him, there is a man in the inner wilderness, the world is not worthy of his footsteps. So at this time, St. Anthony thought, this version doesn't have all the things in it. St. Anthony thought to himself, I wonder if there are any monks. St. Anthony is the first one who started monasticism. And St. Anthony had this thought, right? Because he's a guy, right? And guys have dumb thoughts all the time, right? Like, I wonder if I'm the only monk in the world. I wonder if I'm the first. I wonder if I'm the best. Like Simon thinks all the time, right? And so he had this thought. And so God in his mercy said, you know what? There's someone better than you and someone before you. And so he said, there's this guy named St. Paul. Go check him out. St. Anthony heard this. He rose right away and walked the distance of one day. And God guided him to the cave of St. Paul, which is just like amazing, right? Have you ever been to this place, these places? It's just hundreds of acres, miles, thousands of nothing, right? And so there's two humans over a 50-mile radius. And St. Anthony walked in a straight line to this guy's cave. And they met. He entered and bowed down, and they bowed to each other. They sat down talking about what? The greatness of God. What did he do? And I'd love to hear this conversation. What did he do for you? Wow. What did he do for you? Wow. What did he do for you? Wow. And can you imagine what this discussion was like? I mean, how long did it go? How did you find me again? How did you hear about me again? How did you get to my cave again? Can you imagine the dozen miracles that it took for him to find him in the middle of nowhere? And sometimes we kind of gloss over these details when we hear it in the Cynics. They talked about the greatness of God, but can you imagine what that conversation was like? One guy's been in the wilderness 70 years. St. Anthony at this point has been in the wilderness like 40, 50 years. Can you imagine the stories they could swap? They sat down talking about the greatness of God, and in the evening the raven came and brought what? A whole loaf of bread. And this is the little touches that God puts in our life, right? I mean, for 70 years, 365 days a year, you get half a loaf of bread, and then you get a visitor, and then he brings you a whole loaf. And it's just like God's reaching down from heaven and just saying, I'm right here. I'm that close. Yeah, I noticed that today, person number 1,795,000 has a visitor. And so I'm going to again send him. I'm going to have the bird get him a full loaf. Which just goes to show you, where is God? Is he in heaven? Is he far? I mean, he noticed that St. Paul had a visitor that day. And he instructed a bird to bring him a full loaf. Because this one guy had a visitor that day. Who would do that? How close is God to us for him to notice that? And you can say, oh, that's because he's a saint. You know that's not true. That's him with all of us. How inexplicitly linked is he in his daily life that he would notice that and change the behavior of a bird for that situation. And so sometimes when we feel like, God's far, God's away, God's in heaven, God's, I just need to say things and to this God that's out there and maybe he'll do some stuff. That's not the relationship at all, right? If anything, what does the word Emmanuel mean? God is with us. And that's the name they gave Jesus. And so God in his mercy wanted to say, this is how with you I am. I'm going to come down and be with you as a human. Right? And so what it shows is this level of love between God and man. And then we think to ourselves, does God just want to punish me? Does God hate me? Does God what are you, crazy? Can you imagine a God that loves every human at that level? Right? I mean, the only way we get a sense of this is parenting, right? I think this is why God makes us into parents, right? I mean, I say this all the time. I don't like kids, right? I've never liked kids. Grow up, just keep them away from me. They smell, they stink, they spit on me, right? Someone hold a baby, and I'm like, all the babies look the same. Isn't she cute? No, she's like the others. They're all the same. They all have the same face. You know it and I know it. Just admit it. So I never liked kids until I had my own. And then you're like, wow. And then you realize what love is. Right? Because you guys, with all due respect, have no idea what love is. You think you do, but you really don't. Because you've never loved anything really, really other than yourself. You've never loved anyone else really, really, until you've had a child. And then your whole world changes. This is why some of you guys, as you get older, your friends will start to get married, and then some of your friends will start to have kids. And then you'll notice that your friends have bags under their eyes. And they're miserable. And they're like, we don't sleep. And we haven't seen a movie in 7 months. And we fight all the time. And, we're constantly scrambling. And the baby's food and the baby pooped on me the other day. And then the baby threw up. And then after I changed the baby and I did all this stuff, then it pooped again. So I had to do everything all over again. And I had to blah, blah, blah. And then there's a doctor's appointment. Now the baby's got a fever and blah, blah. And you're looking at him like, this is miserable. Why would anyone have a child? Anyone have this thought? You all should. If you're rational, you should all have this thought. Don't have a child, right? And then you ask the couple, right? And you say, if you're close enough, you say, so do you regret it? Was it worth it? Should I have a kid? And what does the couple say? Abso-freaking-lutely. In fact, they look at you like there's something wrong with you. They'll look at you like, what? This is the best thing that's ever happened to me. And you're like, you're miserable. You're not sleeping. You're cranky. You're this, you're that. And they will tell you unequivocally, I wouldn't trade this for anything. That's the way all parents are, right? And why is that? Because I've never loved anything as much as I love this thing. Ever. Not even close. And you don't even know what love is until you've had a kid. Okay? So this is why I think God, helps us in this process, right? He gives us these children so that we can understand what love is. And why is that important? Because that's the only time I understood who God was. Because then I thought to myself, if I love this kid this much, and I'm just a human, I'm limited, I'm faulty, I'm broken, I'm angry, I've got my own baggage from my parents, I've got all kinds of issues, mental and otherwise, and I love this kid this much. How much does God love me? Does God love me as much as I love this kid? And that thought is mind-boggling. There's no way. God can't even there's no way God loves me half as much as I love this kid. And then when you realize that God is love, and his love is infinite, and you aren't, so it's like he loves me more than I love this kid. Wow. And so sometimes these little touches, right, these little, hands come down from heaven and says, I'm just going to give you a full loaf. Like, I'm right here, I'm watching, and I'm all love. Okay. So when he saw the whole loaf of bread, obviously you can imagine St. Paul was blown away, right? St. Anthony's probably like, whoa, that bird just brought us a whole freaking loaf of bread. That's weird, right? And St. Paul's like, yeah, bro, welcome to the club, right? And then he has to tell him, for 70 years, he's only brought me half. And today is the first day he brought me full. And they probably just wondered, what kind of God is this? And he said, now I know you are one of the servants of God. For 70 years, the Lord sent me every day half a loaf of bread. But today the Lord is sending your food also. And he says, now go and bring me back in a hurry the vestment that Emperor Constantine had given to Pope Athanasius. And I don't know how St. Paul knew about that, but he said, go back and get me this vestment. St. Anthony went to St. Athanasius, brought the vestment, and returned to St. Paul. And on his way back, walking to his cave, he sees the soul of St. Paul going to heaven. So St. Paul didn't want St. Anthony to see him die. So he said, go back to town, get the vestment, bring it back to me. Knowing that he would just use the vestment to bury him, which is what he did. He saw the soul of St. Paul carried by the angels up to heaven, and when he arrived to the cave, he found that St. Paul had departed. He clothed him in the vestment and took his fiber tunic. And then comes the last part of the story that many of you already know. He needed to bury St. Paul. He doesn't have a shovel, can't hire anybody, there's no Craigslist. How do you find someone to dig a hole? So what happens? Yeah, it's in there. All of a sudden, two lions come out of nowhere. And they kind of course, I'm sure St. Anthony's like, oh boy, this is where I die. And all of a sudden the lions did what? Not what a lion should do. A lion, like the bird that brought bread, the lion didn't kill him and eat him. The lions looked at him and almost gave him this look like, what do you want us to do? And so St. Anthony kind of drew on the ground where he wanted the body to go. And then they just started digging. And they dug the tomb, or the grave for him. Once again, same story as this priest from 20 years ago. An animal that's supposed to be vicious didn't attack like it should. Why? It saw in the person harmony. It saw God. Right? In fact, there's a story about Saint Herman of Alaska. He was actually a Russian saint who came to Alaska. If you guys ever been to Alaska, you'll see Orthodox churches everywhere. Anyone been to Alaska? There's Orthodox churches everywhere. So Alaska is all Orthodox because of this guy, St. Herman. And St. Herman, every time you see a picture of St. Herman, he's with a bear, a grizzly, right? And the grizzly's just chilling with him. And the grizzly's defending him, right? And again, same thing, not the nature of the animal. St. Athanasius sent men to bring St. Paul's body to him, but they could not find his grave. Pope Athanasius used to put on the palm fiber 3 times a year. And then in the version I read this morning, it said that St. Paul appeared to St. Athanasius and said, don't try to find my body. It's not God's will that my body be found. Anyway, so that's the story of St. Paul. Today's his feast day. And his monastery, by the way, is still in Egypt, and it's only like maybe half an hour, 45 minutes away from St. Anthony's Monastery. So if you ever go visit St. Anthony's Monastery, it's always nice to visit St. Paul's Monastery because they're actually very close to each other. They're right next to each other in the Red Sea. Yes, question?
St. Paul's the one that's on the
I don't know if it's on a hill. It kind of, I suppose, but yeah.
So you said he departed from his brother, right? After he told him he can have it. Did his brother never try to look for him within the 70 years?
Well, it said he went back and looked for him. His brothers searched for him, and when he did not find him, he was exceedingly sorry for what he had done. That's the only part that...
The body is not meant to be found.
No, they haven't found the body, but they kind of know the general location. And St. Anthony is the same way. Like, they don't know the exact location of St. Anthony's body. There's actually a bit of history to this, too. In that time period, they used to take bodies, in Egypt especially, they're into mummification. They like that stuff. So they would actually mummify bodies. It was actually kind of freaky. They would take these bodies and they would mummify them and put them in the house because they didn't want they wanted the people around, right? They still want grandma around. So they'd mummify the body like in a seated position, which is kind of gross, and then just like put her on the couch so grandma's still there. And if you close your eyes, you can hear her talking to you. And so this practice was in Egypt in the first few centuries. They're just mummy machines over there, And actually St. Anthony spoke out against this practice a lot, like saying, this is wrong, you guys shouldn't be doing this, like this is kind of pagan and weird, and, the body is just dust, and the person isn't residing in the body anymore, so grandma's actually not there, So St. Anthony spoke out against this practice, and they think that's why he didn't want his body found, because they're afraid they're going to mummify him and stick him in a room somewhere and just chat with him. And yes, Michael.
So I heard recently from someone that Minarini knew where the body was and she confirmed it under the main altar of St. Anthony.
Yeah, I know. And so when you go there, they say that's where the body is. And maybe that's true. I don't know. I have no idea where it is. But for the longest time, it was unknown exactly the location. But they've done some sonar echoing thing, and there is a cavity underneath there, but I don't know.
They actually were digging, and St. Anthony appeared to Abbot and told him, if you continue doing this and take my body out, this monastery is done for.
Is what?
Is done for.
Oh, wow. So he's basically, don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it. And so they have like a crevice where the thing is, but they stopped.
Yeah. No, when we go to the main church, the ancient church, they take you to that spot, and no, I know the exact spot. It's over on the right. Yeah. But I think the exact location. I mean, they haven't actually pulled up his relics, which is interesting. Like why some saints we do have the relics and some saints we don't. I don't know. Mine will be readily available if anyone's interested. I mean, I'll be around, You can have an arm or something, put it in the house. That's a joke. Any other questions that I don't have blasphemous answers to? All right. Glory be to God forever. Amen. No questions? All right.